everyone, this is Cheryl, and today we also have.
Simone here. Hello.
So, Simone and I are orientation and mobility specialists. Today, we are going to talk about FAQ questions regarding orientation and mobility.
Yeah, so we have went out to ask our friends and people around us to compile some questions about what they would like to know about us as orientation and mobility specialists. So yeah, today we'll be answering these questions.
A lot to do about our jobs, about what we do day to day, rather than just like about vision impairment or like guide dogs or our organization per se. So let's just start with the questions now. Maybe we'll just throw back and forth. Let's start with Simone. What is the biggest challenge you find when you're working with clients?
Yeah, so for me, I think there is actually a few examples that I can give, but I think one of the biggest challenge when working with clients is that it's not so much of training them in orientation mobility. It's more about understanding them as a person, because different individuals, you have different life experiences and different personalities, and it's really about really trying to understand the person and who they are, and what are their life goals and things like that, and from there then you can kind of build rapport with them and get to understand how you can support them in their orientation mobility training. Yeah,
I get where you're coming from, because every client is so unique and then they all have their unique backstories, and to actually plan a lesson plan for each one of them individually is actually quite a challenge. When I feel like when we first started off as O&M trainers, maybe because of the lack of experience and the lack of exposure, it was quite difficult trying to plan something unique for everyone, and like sometimes you get it wrong and then you have to adjust.
Yeah, and I think another thing is also to kind of understand how your own stereotypes and like your assumptions about people can actually affect the way you see your client, and how that can actually affect how you support them, because if we don't keep an open mind, then sometimes it may hinder us from exploring alternative possibilities and or solutions, or even suggestions that might possibly help our client in their mobility independence. Yeah.
I feel like another one of the challenges I face very often is when I work with caregivers that don't have the same goals as the client. For example, the client might want to be independent, they might want to go out, but the caregivers are a bit more restrictive. They won't
they are quite protective
with their family members going out.
Yeah, so I think I face that as well. Yeah. Because especially when I guess for Cheryl yourself, you work with some clients that are like younger clients. And I think with working with younger clients, you have parents that may be protective in that sense, or they may not feel confident, or they may not want their kids to, or they're just maybe afraid that they're afraid that their kids might get injured while they are traveling out, or what will happen to them and things like that. So I think a huge part in working or in training orientation mobility is not just working with the client, but really working with the people around them, especially the caregivers.
The package.
Yeah. The next question: can you explain a typical day in the life of an orientation and mobility specialist?
So I think our job is like one of the most fun jobs, because we don't have to stay in office and we get to travel around Singapore. So our day-to-day life is really just in the morning we'll see a client at their house. It may be like Pasir Ris, Punggol, Jurong West, but we'll go there, we'll see a client, then spend about maybe 2 or 3 hours with the client depending, and then have lunch, and then go and see our second client, which could be like at the opposite side of Singapore. And for another 2 or 3 hours, then that's when we end work and maybe do some admin. Yeah, so when we do lessons with the clients, it's really like, it could depend day to day. There are days where I just like meet the clients for the first time, we stay in their homes, and we just do assessments. But there are days where I'm out in the sun the whole day, just doing a traffic training, crossing roads, go back and forth, or running around in the MRT station. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. And sometimes I think we also do like site recce, we have to look at the environment first before we conduct the actual training, because we kind of need to plan out the routes. We need to look at the possible routes that my client can travel, maybe from this point to another. There could be alternatives. Then we have to discuss with the client first, back and forth. Then okay, maybe we come to a conclusion that okay, we want to learn this route. Then we'll proceed with the training lah. I think there's a lot of preparation work to do in that.
I spend a lot of time walking on Google Maps. Do you do that?
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, Google Maps is like my best friend for my work.
So sometimes we have to just check which route is the best for our clients, depending on if they have to switch buses or would trains be better. And if they switch buses, is the bus stop going to be crowded? Because my client might need to ask for help. And if it's a very, very quiet bus stop, it may not be suitable for them because there will be no one there to help them, for example.
Yeah.
Really depends on the client. And then usually I'll come up with like maybe 2 or 3 scenarios for them to choose from. Yeah, so like you said, like prep work is really one of the major time consumers for us also.
Yeah. So
Next question. Okay. What do you love about being an O&M, Simone?
I think like what you say lor, because it's not a desk-bound job lah. So we are always out and about, moving around, traveling around to various parts of Singapore. Areas where we've never been before. I guess, and also I think being able to meet clients of like varying backgrounds and meeting different people, that's quite fun. Sometimes we meet interesting people, Yeah.
You perhaps want to share like one of the, maybe the most fun or the happiest memory you have about being an O&M?
There's a few, I guess. I think most fun is when you meet clients that are like kind of like about your same age, and it's kind of like hanging out with a friend, and then you see like they are just like any one of us, aside from their vision impairment, and I mean every person is interesting in their own way lah, I would say. And like the kind of jobs that they hold, the kind of hobbies that they do, the kind of fun facts, like because okay, truth to be told, I think the vision impaired community in Singapore is very tight-knitted lah in that sense. So everyone knows everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
So like it could be maybe this client is like a relative of another person that we are also we know also. So like it's all like interconnected. So yeah, I would say the VI community is like one big family lah in that sense. Everyone knows everyone lah. So it's
I think one of the most fun things that we've had with clients is like, our clients have different, very, very varying background. So sometimes we have clients who can cook very well, and then we end up like with a lot of cookies, random food. And then we have clients who are like artists, and then we end up with random paintings in like office.
Yeah.
Like, one of our sculptor clients, like I brought my cat over to his workshop so that he can sculpt cats. Then what else? Like
I have one client that used to be zi cha chef. So he cooks like very well, and then every time I go to his house, he will just cook stuff lah. It's quite nice.
Yeah, it's quite fun. Most of the time, like I'm always eating like with my clients. So when I tell people like, oh yeah, I'm still working now, but like I'm eating with like a client, or like we are learning about some ADL on how to buy food.
Yeah, and it could also be just more like assessment, because you are technically, you want to build rapport with the client, but it has to be done in a natural way. So I guess having meals with your client is also another way to get close to them and like to understand, because they may not tell you things that you really need to know for the training right at the first session. It might be over many sessions, or like through for a period of time when they start to get warm up with you, and then when they have a meal with you, and you start to get a little bit, like you guys start to get a bit close, then they may share some things that might be useful for the O&M training. Next question. Okay, so what's the educational requirement to become what's the educational requirement in order for you to become an orientation and mobility specialist?
I think to talk about this, right, maybe we'll just talk about step by step about maybe both our personal journeys on how we became O&M in the first place in terms of the educational side. So basically, I signed up to be a guide dogs mobility instructor with GDS, but I ended up getting the orientation and mobility position instead because I had a background. I did my honours in psychology, and that was one of the requirements, or one of the acceptable courses to be accepted into the Masters in Sensory Disabilities, which is the one where you can start learning how to be an orientation and mobility specialist. So with my background, I was accepted to go into the Masters in Special Education Sensory Disability Studies in University of Newcastle. So I took about I rushed through. I did my Masters in 1 year, which required me to spend like almost half a year in Australia. And then, so I ended up with a Masters. Not only that, so now I'm trying to apply for the ACVREP, which is a more international recognized certification for O&M, and actually anything to do with vision rehab. Yeah, so that is the requirements for O&M. Simone, what about you?
For myself, my journey is quite
long.
Different lah. It's a very long journey lah. So I actually started working at Guide Dogs Singapore as an intern. Yeah, so I was studying events at Republic Polytechnic. Yeah, so if anyone that is studying at Republic Polytechnic, you know lah, huh? So at that point of time, we had to do like a 6 months internship, and we kind of don't get to choose where we intern at. So just so happens that I was supposed to intern at a very big events company, and they didn't have extra slots for any more interns to be working there. So they put me in another company, which happens to be Guide Dogs Association of the Blind at that point of time. So that's where I started working there, interning there as a project coordinator for like 6 months. Then I was converted to a full-time, and then I was offered a O&M cadetship, orientation mobility cadetship at that point of time, because at that point of time there is no local O&M instructors. So previously we actually had to get overseas instructors to come to Singapore, and eventually we realized that is not very cost efficient. So they decided it's good to build up local capabilities. So with that, I went on to do a 6 months cadetship. Excuse me. Then that's when I realized, the cadetship doesn't really give me like an educational certification. So it's really more of like an in-house training. Yeah. Then that's when I realized, I need to further my studies. Then I kind of worked as a O&M cadet for like a good 2 to 3 years. Then I went on to do my honours in Child Studies and Disability Studies by I think University of Northumbria. Okay, so it's apparently because in Singapore there is no degree, right? So that's related to that field. Yeah. And I wanted to do something related to disability. So I did that for 1.5 years. Then I took a short break, and now I'm doing my Masters. So I took my Masters in America because the Australia side, which Cheryl is used to get her Masters from, no longer take in foreign students. So I decided to do mine in America, and now with COVID, so I was supposed to do my practical, and then I can't do. So anyways, I'm on my 2nd year of my Masters. So it's a 2 years master program. I'm about to finish the theory side of things. And I'm planning to also get the ACREVPs.
It's the Academy for Certification of Vision Rehabilitation and Educational Professionals. Oh, it's ACBREP, yes, that's right.
ACBREP cert. Yeah.
Let's talk about what kind of skills do you think is required to learn in O&MS? Like you might have the education, but what sort of skills do you think would make you a good teacher for orientation and mobility?
I guess you must be willing to work with people lah. So like you must enjoy working with people. So good interpersonal skills, social skills, talking to people. I guess you must be able to know how to work like independently as well. So other than working with clients, but as O&M instructors, you are kind of like working on your own. A lot of times you kind of need to make decisions on your own. You need to be confident enough to say that, with all this, you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I've realized over the course of like working as an O&M that O&M instructors kind of need to be in a way confident enough to kind of make decisions on your own.
Yeah.
Which can be quite scary sometimes.
Like, you're running solo most of the time, and then like you on each other once a week. So like I just want to say this, like, how people always say, like, when they hear about our job scope, they like to say, wow, you must be really kind-hearted, you must be really patient. I would like to say, like, I didn't start off like very patient, or I wouldn't call myself very kind-hearted, but I think learning to be more patient and I learned how to empathize with people better now.
Yeah, and I think
off with the job, I don't think I had that.
Yeah, I think with this job, you kind of, it helps you to shift your perspective on things lah, in a certain way. Like it helps me to see disabled people in a different light. I didn't know, like before I get to work in this job, I have no interactions with a person with a disabled person at all. I have no understanding or basically no knowledge lah, right? So I think with this job, it has educated me in the sense that it helps me to understand that disabled people are just like every one of us. We, despite our disabilities, we are still a person on its own, with different personalities and things like that lah. So it has helped me to see that differently lor, and I think it's something that I have been trying to advocate to like the people around me, my friends, my family, that it's something that only once you put yourself in a situation to be able to interact with like disabled people, then you realize that it actually is very different from your own like assumptions in your head lah.
Yeah.
So I guess, and I think other skills would be like being able to having the work experience. So to become an O&M specialist, I think you probably need to have some experience lah, working with disabled people. Even if you don't have, that's fine, but you must be willing lah. The willingness has to be there lah. You must be open to it lah. Yeah, you must want to learn about it. That's very important. I think. The next question, can you explain what is a typical session like for your client?
I would say, like, let's talk about like a fresh client, a totally new client who comes to our organization. So first of all, most of our clients are referred over by hospitals, whether it's like SNEC, TTSH, NUH. Usually they get referred over by an occupational therapist or optometrist or just any eye doctor maybe. So what happens is that after the initial call made by Chai Hui, who's our admin staff, we will go down to do the initial assessment. So initial assessment comprises of just asking basic questions like, how do you know that you had a vision impairment? What was your experience like? How much can you see now? What can you not see now? How do you know you started losing your vision? So it gives us a perspective of the transformation of their vision loss, and also like from the start to now, how much their vision have changed in like such a short time, maybe from when they first found out to seeing a doctor to coming over to us. Then after that, we will start piecing everything together to check out like what their lifestyle is like, how often do they go out, their family support, and then after that we will figure out whether the cane is an appropriate tool for them or not. Sometimes the cane might not be appropriate because maybe they have a lot of family support, or maybe they just don't go out at all, and learning the cane is more cumbersome to them, or it might not help them at all actually. So after that, let's say the person really does need a cane and they want to learn the cane, we will teach them basic cane skills. So learning how to use the cane, which is not as easy as it sounds, and then why do they need to use a cane, why do they need to do certain things with the cane, and then how to go upstairs, how to go downstairs, escalators. Then it gets more difficult, how to take bus, how to take MRT, how to cross roads,
how to take the escalator.
yeah, how to prompt after that, and then even transitioning to like, oh, should I use a guide dog? Echolocation, for example. So I would say like O&M is tier-based learning. So there's like the basic O&M, and then it gets more complex, and then like it eventually leads you to become more independent as you learn more. And I would say like a typical day would be like just teaching someone a skill that is like relevant to them at their level. Yeah.
If you have any more questions about like what we do,
leave it in the comment section down below.
Yeah, or you can just
like and subscribe.
Drop us a DM, like and subscribe. Please like this podcast and share it with your friends and your family members, because it's important for them to know. I think that's all. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.